Coming up on today's wrestling news, a major creative shakeup in WWE.
Does Mercedes Moné have creative control in AEW?
Could Nick Aldis wrestle for WWE?
And we have an update on the WWE Draft.
I'm Adam Wilborn.
I'm Michael Sidgwick.
This is the news. So the big story today is a round of WWE releases. Don't panic too much.
Or yet.
Yes, because no wrestlers are involved. Still sad, obviously people have lost their jobs, and it is more of a creative side of things that we've seen people being released by WWE. Mainly happened over the last couple of days. The layoffs affecting areas such as creative services, photography, and other parts of what appears to be another round of corporate restructuring within WWE. The most notable departure, I suppose, is Christine Lubrano. She was the Senior Vice President of Creative Writing Operations. She's been a key figure behind the scenes overseeing aspects of WWE scripted content. She's been with WWE since January of 2021 and was tasked with overseeing all strategic operations for the company's creative division. The Raw, SmackDown, and NXT creative teams reported to both Lubrano and Bruce Pritchard, who in turn reported, of course, to Triple H. No official statement on these WWE releases by WWE, by the way. But yeah, sources indicate that at least 10 to 12 employees have been let go. There could be more, so hold tight.
Is the source on this again?
I think it's just a source within WWE. Actually, I haven't written down who the source is. But it is everywhere, basically, this story. And yeah, I'm always a little bit concerned whenever I read WWE releases, because where there's one or two, there's normally quite a few more, and there's been a load of speculation I've seen online recently that maybe some of your favourites could be getting released, but thankfully none of the in-ring talent just yet. But interesting creative side of things being changed up.
Yes, absolutely. Like, look, it's a strange thing, right? Because WWE is not part of any union, the creative. They're not part of like the Writers Guild or anything like that, and they're not credited as a result of that. So it's very difficult to pinpoint, and it's always hearsay. It's always one side leaks something, then another side leaks a response potentially to make them look good. We might have seen something like this, just to infer, with Dwayne Johnson and Paul Levesque of late. But because ultimately we don't know who gets credited with what, it's pretty difficult to, pinpoint the blame or whatever. I can only infer, this is just pure speculation, but it would seem to me that basically from January 6 until April 20, the Raw debut to WrestleMania Night 2, I would describe this, and I think I'm being fair, as the least well-received period in WWE's recent creative history, amid the resurgence in July 2022, when Vince McMahon resigned in disgrace. I think the general timeline is slow beginnings, the show starting to make more sense, and then Sammy and the Bloodline really starts to heat up. Cody returns from injury. The Judgment Day over on Raw get really hot, and it gets really interesting. And then Cody and Kevin Owens are feuding with them, and all the rest of it. Like, things start to really heat up, and then between 2023 and 2024, it becomes a legitimate boom period. Lots of critical acclaim is generated in the process, and then, as I said, January 6th of this year, from April 20, it just felt like they've kind of bottled the run in for WrestleMania. The main event of Night 2 didn't get much in the way of acclaim. Look, it wouldn't surprise me if this news that we are reporting and that period of WWE and the response to it, they might not be unrelated.
Yeah, exactly. Very interested to see where they go from here. Obviously, there's some changes within WWE. I think I read yesterday that SmackDown goes back to 2 hours, which I think everyone prefers, at the end of June.
I prefer a 1 hour wrestling show, personally. Every single one should do a 1 hour show.
But it was PW Insider Elite who reported this, so I give credit to them for getting this out there. But yeah, I think a shake-up was needed. I'm not saying anyone should ever lose their jobs, obviously, but
you never know, could have been scapegoated. As I said, it's a shame. Like, unions are good generally, and you just don't know. Someone might have been a scapegoat, someone might have been underperforming. Who the hell knows in that operation? It's pretty chaotic. It is pretty chaotic at present, what with Levesque, and Dwayne's seeming political battle, and Dwayne basically saying, the finish, it was good, it was great actually, I would have tweaked it, I would have finessed it somewhat.
Dwayne would have made it better, obviously.
And then Dwayne responding to Dave LaGreca, look, you're welcome to just go on the journey that myself, Cody, and John are telling. Where's Paul and all this? Look, yeah, there is obviously some stuff happening behind the scenes, and this seems like the latest butting of heads, and this seems like the latest sort of phase of this new narrative that's somewhat overwhelming WWE at present.
Yeah, we'll keep you posted on any more WWE releases as and when they happen.
Indeed, and on the subject of creative, Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select has offered an update on the idea that Mercedes Moné, who rarely loses, has amassed several championships across different promotions, including, of course, the AEW TBS Championship. There are rumours that will follow Mercedes Moné seemingly everywhere and every day, that she, in fact, has creative control, that she uses that to leverage the fact that she doesn't job. Sean Ross Sapp has since reported that not only does Mercedes Moné not have creative control, Tony Khan exercises complete editorial control over AEW's process. Nobody does. Yes, there is a sense that top stars will have input in their own creative. Pitches are, accepted if they are deemed good enough. Promos, as we know, are very, very loose and mostly unscripted in AEW. But as far as creative control to that famed Hulk Hogan extent of, I'm not doing a job, that does not exist for Mercedes. The idea might have arisen from the fact that both New Japan and All Elite Wrestling, with whom she is both contracted, simply want to push her heavily as an investment. And look, the general rule is, yes, I know that there's this new sort of, the new vernacular of pro wrestling discourse is, I've seen it with Rhea Ripley, Rhea Hogan, Sasha Hogan. Jesus. It's, I think that it's just a case of a lot of people are
thick,
and tribal, and they have their favourites and they stand for people. And if there are wrestlers who win more than their favourites, instantly they must be political monsters. And I'm not saying that there aren't political monsters in pro wrestling, but according to the very reputable Sean Ross Sapp, Mercedes is not one of them. And look, on the subject of her winning quite often or virtually all the time, why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Like, Hogan won all the time. He was a massive star. Austin won all the time. He was a massive star. What happens is, if you start to lose too often, you in fact lose your star power. And bookers, whether you agree with them or not, whether you like their work or not, they know all of this sort of thing. Like, there's a recent example, right? Chris Jericho has done far too many jobs. Now that he's done too many jobs, beating him means nothing. You have to find that happy middle ground, I guess, but that is the story. I can completely buy that AEW don't want to beat Mercedes, because if you beat her, then, what really are we doing? It's still, she's only been there a year.
Yeah, I was conflicted. You and I were talking about putting this story in the news today, because it's one of those stories that people want to read about and hear about, but I don't want to add fuel to the fire of, creative control for Mercedes Moné? That doesn't work for me, brother, or whatever she says. That doesn't happen. Obviously not. You wouldn't beat her. I can't think of a moment so far in her AEW run where I've been like, she should have lost that match. Like right now, absolutely, like all the belts and what have you, the British title.
The British title.
The British title that she's got.
She's awesome. Why wouldn't you?
In there as well.
Why would you job her out when she's in such great form and she's one of the best wrestlers, certainly in the United States, pretty much of all time at this point?
And I also saw, obviously, them pointing out the fact that she literally called the audible to lose to Willow when she got injured in that match in New Japan. So she's not like averse from taking pins if the situation requires it. It will be interesting to see where we go next. Obviously, she's got Jamie Hayter in the Owen Hart Cup final. If she wins that, she faces Toni Storm. That's where things get a bit more interesting, because I think arguably both of those women deserve or could merit a victory over Mercedes. But right now, I don't see a reason for beating her. Ditto the thing with Rhea Ripley of like, Rhea Hogan is a load of bollocks. A, she lost at WrestleMania, obviously. And B, like you say, just because they don't lose as often as you might think that they should do, well, everyone looks at them as absolute megastars as a result.
Indeed, it's almost as if this strategy of not jobbing Mercedes out, of having her hold loads and loads of titles and having her positioned prominently is working. She has, it was a bit of a shaky start for Mercedes Moné in New Japan particularly. Debut didn't go particularly well. A lot of the matches were more in that sort of 3.5-star range than the 4.5. She has leveled up. A lot of her matches are contenders for the best women's matches all year. Her stuff last year, especially in the latter half of the year, was like really, really strong. She's continued that form into 2025 with like stunning matches against Athena and the like. Almost as if this strategy is A, not hers, it's Tony Khan's. B, is working out rather nicely. I struggle to recall a period in AEW's in the history of AEW's women's division where they're getting quite so much acclaim. We need more matches on Dynamite. God damn it, because the talent is there, and everything, the momentum is there, and we just need a little bit more exposure. I think the strategy's working. Let's just continue it, yeah.
Let's bring you an update now on Nick Aldis. A load of speculation around him wrestling for WWE around WrestleMania, around the situation with Randy Orton, and obviously Kevin Owens' unfortunate injury. Get well soon to him, of course. And it ended up, of course, being Joe Hendry that took the spot against Randy Orton. Wrestle was providing a bit of an update because there was a load of people speculating because Nick Aldis took another RKO from Randy Orton in the build to WrestleMania. Is he going to take that suit off and get in between the ropes? Well, according to WrestleVotes Radio, WWE had no real consideration to have Nick Aldis as Randy Orton's WrestleMania opponent. The segment where Aldis took an RKO was done, quote, to kill a week of TV, with Joe Hendry already locked down at that point. That's amazing. I didn't realise it. I thought it was a lot closer to WrestleMania that Joe was selected. I suppose I read somewhere he was like, Randy Orton was offered several opponents, and Joe was the one that he picked. WrestleVotes continuing though. We are told, however, that Nick Aldis is open to competing down the road if the story is right and appropriate for him to come back and compete. I would love to see Nick Aldis in a WWE ring.
Yeah, you know what, right? I thought, having endured them for virtually my entire adolescent and adult life, that, oh God, if I never see one general manager ever again, I'll be ecstatic. That was my feeling, about 4 or 5 years ago. In terms of the slightly more visible, impartial Jack Tunney role, which is far superior. It's an old school reference, but that is far superior to like the heel authority figure, which, you know, I know things cycle in and out of fashion. That never needs to come back for me, ever.
For another decade.
Under no circumstances whatsoever. In fact, I mean, I love the Young Bucks, but them doing a version of it is one of the few impediments to the fact that, come on, we are so close to roaring back into form. Let's just drop that. So I really don't like that. All that said, Aldis and similarly Adam Pearce, if they are going to play that impartial sort of authority figure role, if you must figure and sort of factor your creative around that, then they are two of the best for the job. There is that element where you get certain wrestlers and they feel like they are like squabbling, and then the big sort of man comes in to sort of shut them up. There is a childlike quality to some of these WWE characters and how they interact with the general managers, but mostly, especially relative to years past, is a lot more bearable for me. Aldis in the ring, right? I had a pitch. It was when they were doing this sort of like bidding war tension, if you like, between Adam Pearce and Nick Aldis. If they continue this as like a little on-off theme, right? And the decision is made at some point to, because nothing ever lasts forever, Pearce or Aldis will go sort of out of this, out of their roles. Them two having a match at WrestleMania, like they can both go. They're both like sort of wise old vets who can sort of like get crowd reactions even if they're not physically sort of in their prime. I think that'd be quite unique.
Yeah, I really like that as an idea. Either that or a trio. Add Ava to the mix. She hasn't got surname. She's Rock's daughter, general manager of NXT, of course. But yeah, there's a load of speculation around Survivor Series as well this year, because when they were advertising it around WrestleMania, everyone sort of went, you haven't said War Games. There's no mention of War Games. There's no War Games on the Survivor Series logo, so maybe we could be going back to the old red versus blue.
Never.
And
that's another thing alongside heel authority figures that I never need to see ever again.
Then again, if that happened, if you did champion versus champion, disregarding, world champion side of things, John Cena versus Jey Uso, you would get Jacob Fatu versus Dominic Mysterio. So,
I mean, that would be absolutely glorious, absolutely glorious. One of the problems, of course, with Survivor Series and how it used to play out a few years ago was that they would do a draft often the month before the pay-per-view, with the idea being that these people wearing red t-shirts were smacked down in their hearts.
I bleed blue.
I bleed blue for a month. I mean, it made no sense whatsoever. But on the subject of drafts, WrestleVotes have come through with a report saying that it's their belief that this is still planned. It's just unsure as to when. In their words, there's been no really great time to implement this year's draft, what with WrestleMania going a little bit later in the calendar than it historically does, Backlash following in very quick succession, then beyond that you've got sort of a rapid fire round of Saturday night's main events, so it's not clear when it's going to happen, when there would be a good time, but as far as they are aware, there are plans to do it at some point. That makes sense, I guess. I'm not a person who gets into big draft fever.
I quite like the draft. when it comes around.
I can't be arsed with that anymore.
It confuses me because I immediately forget who's on which show. It also opens the door to more like call-ups from NXT, of course.
The transfer window happened as well,
Yeah.
and WWE haven't really adhered to it. And look, if it was this really strict thing, where like I remember like one of my favourite stories in WWE history, and it was the one time post WCW and ECW, the one time really that WWE nailed the idea of this sort of pseudo interpromotional warfare was Michaels versus Angle, where because WWE adhered to the idea more often than not, certainly a lot tighter than they do nowadays, you sort of accepted the reality of, oh, you won't see Raw versus SmackDown, they've got the single brand pay-per-views and all the rest of it. So when Michaels and Angle came into each other's paths, you thought, oh my god, they can do this.
Yeah.
And because they'd been separated from Raw and SmackDown their entire overlapping careers, it was the closest WWE ever came to an interpromotional dream match. So if they could manage that again, it would take, again, months and months, maybe even years of belief in the process for a crossover to really feel like something. So the draft will happen. I personally don't care. Let us know in the comments if I'm being too miserable. Don't. You don't need any invitation for that.
Yeah, I wonder when they're going to do it now, because obviously traditionally, or certainly last year, it happened pretty much hot on the heels of WrestleMania. Having said that, there have been quite a few big changes following WrestleMania, loads of title changes, the establishment of this new Seth Rollins stable. So right now, the pieces are kind of fine where they are, whether or not they wait till, I don't know, post-SummerSlam perhaps, that could be when the draft happens. Like you say, we've got a very busy calendar coming up in the next few weeks and months. Having said that, there's also a bit of me, if they're not doing Seth Rollins taking the world title off Jey Uso, wants people like Drew McIntyre to switch shows, because I think he's the ideal person to dethrone Jey Uso. Dethrone him.
What does that mean?
As everyone says. That's what I'm talking about online. But yeah, I get into the draft and then I realise, in reality, like you say, it's just kind of moving stuff around that's been moved around anyway, and people just pop up on shows as and when they want to. So we'll keep you posted on that. But a bit of bonus news. 5 news stories.
Ambassador! You are spoiling us.
5 news stories for the price of 4 today. One thing we do know about is WWE going down under. Huh?
Right. I hate you so much, man. So he was like saying, we should do a 5th news story. I was like, that's not really the format. That's not really the format. It's a bit awkward doing that. It's like, now we should do it. I was like, why is he so insistent on telling this? It's because he wanted to do the Australian voice, isn't it?
Yeah, they're going to Perth in October. It's not just a usual bloody WWE takeover show like they've been advertising though. It's Crown Jewel. Crown Jewel Perth is going to be taking place on October 11th at the RAC Arena in Perth, Australia. They're going to have SmackDown before, Raw afterwards, usual sort of thing here. Rhea Ripley, Grayson Bloody Waller travelled to Perth to make the announcement. Now, interestingly enough, obviously the last time...
We should do the Australia story stage. We should really do it. Why?
Last time they were in Perth, but they were there for Elimination Bloody Chamber, February 2024.
Yeah, of course they were.
That was, of course, headlined by Rhea Ripley. October 11th, the day of Crown Jewel Perth, Rhea Ripley's birthday. So,
all right.
Don't know if there's anything in that.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Is that something?
Is this anything? Look, right, okay. Pay-per-view's been announced. I mean, it's news, I guess.
Will we going? Will we going to cover it?
We won't be doing that. We will not be doing that. The only comment I have on that is, what a strange brand to take international.
Yes. Yeah.
The illustrious history of Crown Jewel.
From our time in Jeddah, now to Perth.
It was a Crown Jewel or
Super Showdown.
Super Showdown.
I suppose they did do a Super Showdown in Australia, didn't they?
Yeah, they did actually. Was it Crown Jewel? Was the Undertaker and Kane versus DX? Oh my favourite matches of all time. So funny. Like, usually when Kane takes the mask off, he says something horrible, but it literally mask came off because he was too hot in the sun. So a different mask off to what we're used to with Glenn Jacobs.
But what a way for Shawn Michaels to officially sort of sign off on his career. It was far better that than when he previously retired, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was great.
Anyway, let us know your thoughts on that and everything we've discussed in the comment section.
Basically looked exactly the same as when he was doing the Hulk Hogan impression in 2005.
Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. You can follow us both on X. You can follow him at MCidrick, me at Adam Wilborn, all of us at WhatCulture WWE. Make sure you subscribe to the What Culture Wrestling Podcast, wherever you get your podcasts from, for daily wrestling podcasts. But for now, why not watch this video? I've no idea what it is, but I'm sure it's bloody great.